So there are a number of factors which are affecting brain health. One are intrinsic, the genetic traits, the age, the gender, but there are many others which are risk factors across the development that are affecting the brain health of future. One may be the pollution, the exposure to toxics, to endocrine disruptors, not having very good sleep, lack of exercise, overweight, etc., etc. Actually, the brain is quite plastic, and then many things are affecting the brain health, how the brain works at future, and can determine whether we are going to have a good or a brain working properly at future or not. So the recommendation then is to look for customs and things that are good for the brain, like a little bit of exercise, good quality sleep, etc., etc. So the brain is particularly vulnerable at the earliest stage of life, when this is being formed during pregnancy. At the very beginning, there is some requirements. For instance, folate is required during the tube formation because there is neurogenesis, etc. And the lack of folate, for instance, is induced in spina bifida because the neural tube is not closing properly. Later, the brain is very plastic in the childhood, and many factors can affect the development of the brain. For instance, even social and educational factors can influence how the brain forms, how the brain develops, and how the brain wires. And this is very important because stress, for instance, is very critical. Not having exposure to stress is very critical because there are epigenetic mechanisms that are affecting the brain development. Later on, during adolescence, this is essentially true. There are a number of critical periods in terms of plasticity, and being correctly educated, for instance, is inducing large cognitive capacities of future. During over 60 or 65, there is a natural cognitive decline that should be studied because this is important, and probably answering the mechanisms of this natural decline could tell us a lot of things about pathological cognition losses, and that's in a sense the brain is plastic, and everything that can influence through the senses to our brain is producing changes that can be good or can be bad. Essentially, the exposure to drugs like tobacco, alcohol, cocaine, etc. is very detrimental, particularly in periods in which the brain is being formed. And we don't have to forget that the brain matures not less than 21 years. So there is a window of intervention which is very important to take into account. Yeah, is to keep adequate brain health. There are a number of things that we know that are preserving cognition and making the development of brain properly. One is, for instance, a little bit of exercise, not to be exposed to alcohol or any drugs, particularly during times of the periods of the development, to have lives far from stress. Stress is quite detrimental for brain activity and from brain wiring, and essentially is inducing a number of changes at the level of brain wiring that could affect the brain performance and then affecting brain health. So a good exercise maintaining a very cardiovascular health has been demonstrated that is very positive for preserving adequate brain activity. So there are a number of things that we can do to preserve our brain health, but all others, like politicians or decision makers, can do because the environment seems to be quite important for the brain performance, and the kind of city in which we are living, the kind of environment that we develop our works, etc., etc., and this can be, preserved by the decision makers in a global society action.